everyone, welcome back to Pabbly. In this video, we're going to learn how to create GoToWebinar Registrant for WooCommerce order. So I'm an owner of an edutech company and I sell a lot of different online courses and conduct a lot of webinars in my business. Using WooCommerce, I manage the sales of my business, and using GoToWebinar, I manage all the webinars that I'm hosting. I want that over here that I'm recently conducting a webinar. I want that as soon as when the participant, the purchase of that webinar, the access of the webinar is going to be purchased with the help of WooCommerce, I want to create that participant as a registrant in my GoToWebinar account according to the correspondent webinar that they have registered for. Now, doing this manually is very time consuming. So what I've done is I've simply automated this entire process with the help of Pabbly Connect, which is an amazing automation and integration software. And here in this automation, I'm going to build a connection between WooCommerce and GoToWebinar with the help of it. So if you also want to learn about this amazing automation process step by step, for that, let me take you to my screen. In this video, we're going to learn how to create GoToWebinar Registrant for WooCommerce order. So as an owner of an online education business, I often host webinars to connect with my audience and provide valuable insights on my courses and services. I use WooCommerce to manage my product sales, including course registrations and other educational resources. And I also use GoToWebinar to host professional webinars that allows me to engage with my audience and deliver impactful sessions. By automating this entire process, I can ensure that every customer who places an order on my WooCommerce store for a webinar related to product is automatically registered to the corresponding session in GoToWebinar. This saves me time and ensures seamless experience for my customers as they receive their webinar access details without any manual efforts. And I'm going to create this amazing automation between WooCommerce and GoToWebinar with the help of Pabbly Connect. So on the screen, you can see the website of Pabbly Connect, that is pabbly.com/connect. After browsing this website, we need to sign into our Pabbly Connect account. But if you're a new user, you can sign up for free and get 100 free tasks every month. So as I'm an existing user, I'm going to sign into my Pabbly Connect account. After signing in, you can see the All Pabbly Apps window in front of you, in which you can see all the application that Pabbly provides, from which we are going to select Pabbly Connect by clicking on this Access Now button right here. Then Pabbly Connect's dashboard is going to appear in front of you. In order to start an automation process in Pabbly Connect, we need to create a workflow. For that, click on this top right corner button right here that says Create Workflow. A dialog box is then going to appear in front of you, which is asking for the workflow name and for us to select a folder. So for the name of my workflow over here, I'm going to give it as Create GoToWebinar Registrant for WooCommerce order. So this is the name that I want to give to my workflow, okay? After that, over here, it is asking for us to select a folder. So on the left side of my screen, you can see I have created multiple folders in my Pabbly Connect account, from which I'm going to select a specific folder in which I want to save this workflow in. For that, click on this drop down. These are the folders from which I'm going to select WooCommerce Automations as the folder I want to save this workflow in. After giving the name to the workflow and selecting the folder, I'm going to click on this Create button in order to create a workflow. A workflow is created in the name of Create GoToWebinar Registrant for WooCommerce order, and you can see there are two windows in front of you. One says Trigger, other says Action. So what is Trigger and Action? Trigger and Action are the two most important steps of our automation process because our process depends on these two concepts. Over here, Trigger says when this happens and Action says do this. That means what is Action? Action is a response towards our trigger. In an automation process, there can be only one trigger step but multiple action steps. We are going to set up our trigger step first. And for the trigger application, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as WooCommerce. As with the help of WooCommerce, I'm managing the sales of my services that I provide. I want that as with the help of WooCommerce, I'm collecting the payments from the participants who are interested in my webinar that I'm hosting. I want that as soon as this webinar is going to be purchased by the participant, automatically over here, the trigger should capture the response of that. And that is why for my trigger application, I've selected it as WooCommerce, and for my trigger event, I'm going to select as new order created. After selecting the trigger application and the event, you can see that Pabbly Connect has provided us with a webhook URL. Using this unique webhook URL, we are going to build the connection between WooCommerce and Pabbly Connect by following the steps given here below in the help desk. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to copy this URL from here. After copying the URL, I'm going to go back to my WooCommerce account. So this is my WooCommerce account and this is the webinar that I'm hosting, that I'm selling with the help of WooCommerce. I want to connect this WooCommerce account to Pabbly Connect. In order to do that, from the left side of the panel, go to this WooCommerce section and click on this settings button right here. After coming to settings, from this panel, go to this advanced section right here. After coming to advanced and the page setup, you can see there are multiple options. Click on this webhooks option right here. As I'm going to do that, you're going to land towards the webhooks page. Over here, this says webhooks. I'm going to click on this add webhook button right here as we're going to create a new webhook. And as we're going to do that, over here, you're going to land towards the add new webhook page, which is asking for the name of the webhook first. So the name over here, I'm going to write it as new order. Okay, so this is the name. For the status, I'm going to select it as active. For topic over here, if I'm going to click on it, there are multiple options. And as my objective is that as a new order is going to be created in my WooCommerce account, towards the webhook URL, the response should be forwarded. So I'm going to select the topic as order created. After that, it is asking for the delivery URL. This is the webhook URL field. So I'm going to paste the webhook URL. For the secret over here, I'm going to write the dummy secret. For the API version, I'm going to select the latest version right here. After filling the details, I'm going to click on this save webhook button. As I've done that, it says webhook updated successfully. As now the webhook URL is added to my WooCommerce account, I'm going to go back to my workflow and scroll down. And yes, you can see right over here in the response, we have received the webhook ID. This means now the webhook URL has now been successfully added to my WooCommerce account. Okay. So as now the response of the webhook ID has been captured in my WooCommerce account, what I want is, in place of this webhook ID, I want the response of the order being created in my WooCommerce account. So now for doing that, I'm going to recapture the response right here. As I'm going to do that, it is saying waiting for webhook response. So now to check whether WooCommerce has now been successfully connected to Pabbly Connect or not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the test submission of the product that I've created in my WooCommerce account. And after doing the test submission, I'm going to check whether Pabbly Connect captures the response of the test submission being done or not. Okay. So this is the product you can see right over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the test submission of this product right here. For doing that, this is the link of the product. I'm going to open it in a new tab. So this is the product. I'm going to purchase the product right here. I'm going to click on add to cart. It is asking for all these details. I'm going to click on proceed to checkout button right here. Now it is asking for the billing details. Firstly, it is asking for the first name. So for the first name over here, I'm going to write it as new. For the last name over here, I'm going to write it as account. For the company, I don't have a company, so I'm going to remove the data. For the country, I'm going to select it as India. For the address over here, I'm going to write it as 123 Old City. For the town over here, I'm going to write it as Indore. For the state, I'm going to select it as Madhya Pradesh. For the pin code over here, I'm going to enter a dummy pin code right here. It is asking for the phone number. So for the phone number over here, I'm going to write in a dummy mobile number right here. And for the email address over here, I'm going to write it as new account @pabblytudes.com. Okay. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on this place order button right here. As I've done that, you can see it says thank you, your order has been received. As now a new order is created, I'm going to go back to my workflow and scroll down. And over here, I'm going to wait for a few seconds. As I've done that, I've waited for a few seconds. You can see the response has been captured of the new order being created. This is the total amount. Status comes as processing. You can see right over here. If I'm going to further scroll down, this is the name of the product that was Mastering Digital Marketing Live Webinar. If I'm going to further scroll down over here, you can see the state comes over here as Madhya Pradesh. This is dummy postal code. Over here, first name comes as new, last name as account, country as IN, that is India. City as Indore, address as 123 Old City. And you can see this is the details right over here with all the other things you can see right here. Okay, as the response of the order being created has been captured over here in my trigger, this means that we created a connection between WooCommerce and Pabbly Connect and our trigger setup is done. As now our trigger setup is done, we have received the details of our participant who have registered for the webinar that I'm hosting. Now what I want is I want to create this participant as a registrant in the webinar that I've created in my GoToWebinar account. Now for that, we're going to set up our action step, and for the action application over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as GoToWebinar, and for the action event, I'm going to select as create registrant. So if I'm going to open my GoToWebinar account, this is the webinar that I've created in the name of Mastering Digital Marketing Live Webinar, and I am hosting my webinar with the help of GoToWebinar account. Okay, I want to create a registrant in this webinar that I've created. The webinar is on 1st of Feb 2025 from the timing as 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time. Okay, so now let us connect our GoToWebinar account to Pabbly Connect. I'm going to click on this connect button. A window is going to appear in front of you, on which click on add new connection, or else you can select the existing connection that you have. After clicking on add new connection, it is asking for the from time to the to time. The time of our webinar, from when it's going to start to what time it's going to end. We have to enter the from time and to time both in a UTC time zone format. Okay. Now, how we are going to have the UTC time zone format? So, firstly, I've already told you the webinar is on 1st of Feb 2025 from the time as 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time. So, I'm going to open a new tab and I'm going to search for IST to UTC. Okay, there are multiple options. I'm going to select a converter from here, and my Indian Standard Time, that is the webinar, is going to start from 10 a.m. So, I'm going to select the IST as 10 a.m. Okay, I'm going to click on this OK button. 10 a.m. in Indian Standard Time is 4:30 a.m. in a UTC time zone format. So over here, firstly, I'm going to copy this format from here, paste it right over here. I'm going to make few changes. The date is 2025, February is 02, and the date is 01 right here. Okay, and the time is going to be 4:30. Okay, so this is the from time. I'm going to copy the same format from here and I'm going to paste it right here. The date is same right over here, but the time is going to be changed. Okay, now it's going to end at 11 a.m. So I'm going to select it over here as 11 a.m., which is 5:30 a.m. So the timing is going to be right over here as 5:30 a.m. Okay, after entering the from time and the to time, I'm going to click on this connect to GoToWebinar right here. As I'm going to do that, you can see successfully authorized GoToWebinar to Pabbly Connect. Okay. As now GoToWebinar is successfully connected to Pabbly Connect, firstly it is asking for us to select a webinar. So I've created a webinar in the name of Mastering Digital Marketing Live Webinar. I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to go back, and for the webinar, I'm going to select that webinar from the drop down. After that, over here it is asking for all these details of a registrant that we want to create in our GoToWebinar account. So for the data of these fields, what we are going to do is we're going to map the data. Mapping means inserting data from the previous step. So we're going to insert the data from the previous step of this workflow. And how mapping works is that as soon as I'm going to click on this field, this was the previous step. And as I'm going to click on it, you can see this is the same response that was captured in our previous step. It is asking for a registrant's first name. This is the response of our customer have done the purchase using WooCommerce, and I want to create the same customer as a registrant in my GoToWebinar account. So for the data of this field, I'm going to select the data from my previous response. It is asking for the first name, so I'm going to select the data of the first name from my previous response. As I've selected the data from my previous response, the data is mapped, and as I have mapped the data has now become dynamic. That means now whenever a new response is going to be captured in our previous step, automatically the new data is going to be updated in place of this mapped data. Similarly, for the last name, I'm going to map the data of the last name right over here. I'm going to map it. After that, it is asking for the email, so I'm going to map the data of the email right here. Okay, it is asking for the address. We have received the address. I'm going to map the data, address 1 and address 2 right here. For the city over here, I'm going to map the data of the city that I've received right here. I'm going to map the data. For the state over here, I'm going to map the data of the state right here. This is data of my state. I'm going to map it. For the code over here, I'm going to map the data of the code right here. For the country, I'm going to map the data of the country right over here. I'm going to map the data. And for the phone number over here, I'm going to map the data of the phone number that I've received right here. I'm going to search for it. This is the phone number. I'm going to map the data. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on this Save and Send Test Request button right here. As I've done that, we have received a response, which is a positive response, and I'm going to open my GoToWebinar account. So this is the webinar right over here. I'm going to refresh this page from here. As I've refreshed the page, if I'm going to scroll down over here, you can see it says registration. I'm going to click on it and scroll down. You can see it says total registrants. I'm going to click on this number right here. And you can see a new registrant has been added to my webinar in the name of new account. Approved is the status. Email is newaccount@pabblytudes.com with the registration date, time zone, address as 123 Old City, city as Indore, state as MP, this is the postal code, country and the phone number. As now the registrant has been successfully created in my GoToWebinar account, this means that we have successfully created an automation between WooCommerce and GoToWebinar with the help of Pabbly Connect. So now to sum up till now what we have done, I am an owner of an online education business and I host a lot of webinars. Using GoToWebinar, I manage all my webinars, and using WooCommerce, I collect the payments from my participants who are interested in the webinars and the services that I provide. For the trigger, I've selected it as WooCommerce new order created, as whenever by the participant a purchase is going to be done of the webinar that I'm hosting using WooCommerce, I want to create that participant as a registrant in my GoToWebinar account, and with Pabbly Connect, I build the connection between these two applications in this manner. So this was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Not just with these applications, you can create automation between multiple other applications with the help of Pabbly Connect. If you have any questions, you can contact us on support@pabbly.com. If you have any queries, you can check the queries on forum.pabbly.com. And if you have any pricing related issues, then you can check out this link. If you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel, hit on the like button, comment on if you have any questions or doubts, and please share this video.